Welcome to the Survive, Scale, Soar podcast. Hear and learn through the success of others how to build the life and business you deserve. Learn to overcome failure, what it means to seek out growth, and how to become the best possible version of yourself. And now, here's your host, coach, entrepreneur, husband and father, and author of the #1 best-selling book, Survive, Scale, Soar, Jeremy Williams.
And welcome back to the Survive, Scale, Soar podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, and I've got an amazing guest today. She's a coaching client of mine. She's a friend, and she is a top real estate agent here in the Kingwood, Atascocita area, also serving the greater Houston area. It's Bobbie Callahan Spain, team leader of the Callahan Real Estate Group, brokered by Keller Williams Realty Northeast. How are you doing today, Bobbie?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Bobbie, I'm excited to have you on the show. We've known each other for a long time. A little background from my experience with you is you came from the teaching area to becoming a real estate agent. And I remember you telling me, hey, if I could make some decent money in the summer, I just won't go back. And you did, and you never looked back. No. And you've grown an amazing business over the years, and you're very respected here in the community. So I'm glad to have you on. Yeah, today's topic is going to be kind of a niche within the real estate industry. I get a lot of questions about, and that's investing in real estate. And we're going to talk a little bit today about short-term rental and long-term rentals, which you've done both. Bobbie, tell us a little bit about what's happening in your business within that niche.
Well, so it's, I started out doing investment real estate. I like to say before Chip and Joanna made it cool. I started flipping homes when I was in my 20s. And so that was kind of a big thing for a while. And what we've come to see is that while that there is money to be made in flipping, that is all very market specific and depends on what's going on in the market. And what I've seen and what many people have since found is that there's a lot more income to be made in rental. It's longer term. It doesn't have the tax hit like you take with a flip. And it becomes a source of passive income that's just there.
Yeah. And I want my audience to know when I bring somebody on the show, they're 100% qualified to talk on this subject because not only do they have knowledge in this area, but they're actually practicing what they preach. Bobbie, tell us a little bit about your journey and the investment side as of late.
Okay, so I bought my first home that was going to be a rental about 7 years ago. And that home has always been a long-term rental, meaning a vacant home where somebody's staying a year or more. And that it was and has been a great decision that I made. Then I bought another home, and actually, it was actually after the flood here, and I remodeled that home. And I bought it with the intention of doing executive rental or long-term rental. And that one has been excellent because of the area that it's in. I knew that it would have a really good rental income. And then I bought another one just last year. And that one I had decided, and I was specifically looking for a property that could be a short-term rental. And because one of the things that has been said over and over in our Keller Williams office, or just from hearing in the public, there's just such a high demand for short-term. We've had inventory shortage on resale. So people are moving here, and Houston is one of the top areas for people moving in. And many of them come out to the Kingwood area, and they can't find a home. So they're needing something short term, whether it be 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. staying in a hotel that long is not, people don't like that.
It's not feasible.
So,
Yep.
right. And so there are very few short-term rentals. And so the demand is high, and it's weekly. We would hear in the office somebody needing short-term. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do this and see how it goes. I knew 2 other people doing it that were staying completely booked almost all the time. And so I just decided to give it a shot. Worst case scenario, I thought it'll go back to a long term.
Yeah. So you evaluated the market, you had an understanding of a specific need that could be met, and
Right.
you solved that solution, and also made an investment in yourself by typically what you'd buy as a long-term rental, you turn it into a short-term rental. And
Right.
how often is it empty?
So not very often. I was looking at our percentages. So last year is when it started, this particular one. And it had, it was in the last quarter is when it actually started renting. There were only 5 days vacant. Well, you have to have vacant days because that's when it's cleaned, in between guests. So it had a 95% occupancy rate. That is not typical. And it was in the last quarter. So that is a big holiday season. So it has a higher occupancy rate during that quarter.
So
Now, I'm sorry.
So you had mentioned about the area. Kingwood, if you're not from the Houston area, is up on the northeast side of town above Lake Houston.
Right.
And it's a suburb of Houston.
Right.
And a lot of people would think, well, these short terms would do better in Galveston or some of these vacation destinations. Like, how did you choose this market? Why did you choose Kingwood?
Well, the main reason was because I knew of the need. Now, here's the thing. If you don't know, that if you're not in real estate and don't hear in the office constantly how it's needed, one thing that makes this particular area so good, as well as any that are surrounding the major airport is minutes from here. So that's a huge thing to consider. We're also, around 20 miles from downtown Houston. So that's another thing. We're not a vacation destination. And so that's what they have said to me over and over. How are you getting people? Well, so it's not for vacation. People don't come to Kingwood to vacation. They come for many other reasons though. So we have people that are in between homes. We have traveling nurses that come to work in the medical center or one of the local hospitals. We've had several of that. We have insurance situations where somebody has a pipe bust and insurance companies look for them, places like my house. We've got people that come in for all kinds of competitions, sports, their kids are traveling, for baseball, gymnastics, swimming, you name it. They're coming in for competitions. They come in for weddings, big birthday celebrations. I've had people, you just name it. It's just something because it's such a big city. People are coming here a lot for things. And so they come in for medical treatment from the med center, just a lot of reasons. And so they choose this because one, we're not near as expensive as hotel rooms, especially if they're bringing their whole family. And that's what the big push in short-term rentals has been, is because people like traveling with a large group, especially if they're coming in for things like that. And so where a house can sleep so many more people than a hotel room, you have to end up getting more than one hotel room, and that cost adds up really fast. So having a whole house, being able to cook, having a garage, things like that, just make it so appealing. I haven't stayed in a hotel in I don't know how long, unless I leave the country. Otherwise, I stay in Airbnb personally. So it makes a difference where the house is located. We're located very close to the freeway. And then major things that are around us. And that's why we get people. And I think one of the benefits is to not be in a vacation destination. If the economy is taking a dip, say a recession is coming, or, prices of gas go up, things like that, that's happened. One of the first things people give up are vacations. So, but they still have to travel for work. They're still going to take their kids to their competitions. They're going to come in for weddings or celebrations. And so we don't have the seasonal vacancies like some vacation destinations would have.
So you shared a really interesting statistic. I had not heard this about the amount of money generated by these short-term rentals in the Houston area. Can you share that number with the audience?
Right. So Houston is one of the top 50 cities for short-term rental in the country. And just in Airbnb alone, Houston brought in $72 million last year, just Airbnb, not to mention all the others.
That's amazing. And so, I think a lot of times we have this misconception that it does need to be at a resort type destination, a getaway, and really it's serving people with more practical needs.
Right. And so, depending on where the property is, that is what dictates whether it should be short term or whether it should be long term. There's no one size fits all. And then, vacation destinations are also good, especially if you want to use that place. So if you're close to a beach and you want a beach house, it's an excellent way to have it pay for itself, and then you also get to use it.
That's a great idea. That's something I've thought about with our rental. We have a long-term rental with 4 different units in Galveston, and if one ever came available, that might be an opportunity for us down the road to say, we're going to hold that one, and we're going to use that for ourselves and maybe some short-term rental as well. What's the biggest mistake people make? They one day they wake up and they're like, I hear all this stuff about real estate, and I know that's where I need to put my money, and they just go out and try to figure this thing out on their own. What's the mistake they make?
So what I see, I've seen quite a bit, is they get a very bad, I should say not bad, but the big misconception is it looks like it looks on TV. And the market that you live in is most likely not like the ones that we see on TV. They think they can buy something, put whatever into it, and they'll get it out. And that's just not real life, especially in our area. And so when they think that there's a good price on a house, I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls saying, what about this one? What about this one? And I say, no, because they don't know what the market is really doing. The biggest mistake people make is not using somebody that is a market expert where they're looking. And I mean, not just a little bit, but really knows the market. They know every neighborhood. They know what the values are in each neighborhood, and can guide them in whether the house should be a flip, whether it should be a long term, whether it could be a short term, and where they're going to make their money the best. They can also guide them in what, if there needs to be some renovation, the max they need to spend. Every neighborhood has a ceiling of the top amount that the house is going to get. And so if they don't know that and they go into it blindly, they can really have a bad outcome. And it's just not necessary with a buyer. A buyer has no expenses for a realtor. And so there's no harm in finding the best one you can. And they're going to be the ones that know this process and know how to guide you.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, understanding that in 99.9% of all real estate transactions that are agent represented, is that the buyer is not paying for the commission, the seller is.
That's right.
And I think the other thing that's important is there's like 1.2 million realtors, too many, in my opinion. And there's going to be a certain amount that are really key in their craft, and they really understand the market, as Bobbie was saying. And I think, not just being a real estate agent, yet also, like Bobbie, having the experience of personally doing it, having the experience of flipping, having the experience of rentals and short-term and long-term, because that's going to be additional information and knowledge that can be passed along to help the buyer make the best decision possible for them and their investment.
That's absolutely true. If they don't, I see all the time when we're called out on houses to list where they're on the worst streets or just these areas you would never, and I say worst streets for traffic and whatever, just hard to resale. And I always ask, how did you end up in this house? And they will tell you it's an out of area realtor, or it's, their cousin that just got their license, and they just don't have the experience yet in the market. If they don't do investment, that would be something I would highly consider, because there is so much more into it than what you see on TV. There's a lot more to it. And it's not as easy as it looks as far as renovating and things like that. Having a realtor that actually does it, like for me, I have my own crews. And so I pass those on to my clients, and they're tried and true. Their quality is good. Their prices are good. And it's a benefit all the way around.
Yeah, it's huge. I know I can have my crew established for my investment property, and somebody I worked with for like 14 years. And so I know that when I put him on the property or on the job, he's going to show up on time. He's going to do the high quality work. Right. He's going to be nice with my other tenants on the property, and it's all going to come out kumbaya. Right. But there's a process to setting that up. And when somebody comes to you, that's kind of part of the package that they get. And so they're not having to go out and find all this additional stuff that maybe they just didn't think of.
Absolutely. And if they don't have, electricians, or they don't have, a handyman that can do some repairs, or good tile guy, if they're not experienced in renovation, which most people aren't, even if they've had tile put in their home, they still, when you're dealing with a renovation, there's absolute order that these things should go in, and they end up spending more than they should because they've never done it, and so having somebody that's done it and can guide them, and that's what I do with my people. I help them all the way through it, and that's just
the other thing is that you get somebody that says, "Oh, I can get this done in 2 weeks," and then a month and a half later, as you have no rental income coming in, you're like, "Okay, what do I do now?"
Right. Absolutely. And when you have a crew established, they're always you're always priority. I never have to worry about when I'm going to get my painter. He will drop everything pretty much because he likes me to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about relationships.
It is.
Another mistake and we talked about this before we got on the call was, not thinking everything, and you step into one of these and you've got all these other things that you don't think about, and it's like you could have just hired a property manager to handle that. Tell me a little bit about what a property manager does.
So the reason for somebody to have a property manager would be, let me talk about with a long term versus a short term. With a long term, it's pretty passive. There's very little you've got to do while you have the tenants in there. They're responsible for just about everything. If something major happens, then you're going to have to deal with it. But that's not often, thank God, at least in my experience. And where with a short term, you have a lot more dealings because you're turning guests over. And so if somebody gets into this and thinks that it's going to be as passive as long-term, that's going to be a big mistake for them. If they don't have the time to deal with this property, to deal with the guests, the communication, because when you do short-term, what you have to understand is that you're now in the hospitality business. This is a business. This isn't something that you can just, devote a few minutes to a week and it's just no problem. It is a business, and you're being rated by people. You're wanting to stand out as being better than a hotel to come to. So you in long term, one doesn't really think about being in hospitality, but in short term, that is what you think. And so you want the guest experience to be as good as it possibly can. And so otherwise, they're not going to stay with you. They're going to leave bad reviews. People are going to see that. So if somebody does not have the time to do all of the things that need to be done, then they need to have a property manager. And then that would also need to be figured into the expense and whether this was going to be viable for them. A long-term rental, if you have a property manager, is, anywhere from 10 to 15%. Short-term rental property management can go up to 30%. It can't up to 30%. So because there's so much more to do.
Yeah.
However, the gains are substantially more as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Higher the gain, the more hands in the pocket. That's what I say.
Right.
But even with the long term, hospitality, I think, is really important. I know in my situation, they're all long term. One's just re-signed a 2-year lease.
Right.
And hospitality is still a big thing, and making sure that they're taken care of.
Well, sure.
Because most of these are long term rental, and as long as they're happy, they don't want to move.
That's right.
So, and I appreciate you saying it's a business, because I hear people all the time calling real estate investing a side hustle, and it's not. It's a business. It's a legit business.
It certainly is. And, I will say that my biggest regret is not learning about this a long time ago, when I was younger. And so that's one of the things that I also, like my first time home buyers I work with, I try to educate them as well on a long-term plan, because had I started long-term rental or short-term rental much earlier, I'd probably be retired by now. But one of the big draws on, doing investment this way is, people are always going to need a house to stay in. And when times are bad, sometimes, when there's been high foreclosure, then they rent. If you're choosing a house in an area, and experienced realtors helped you buy one in a great area, it appreciates. Where the stock market, you can lose it all. It's real estate always has a value. And that's what we've learned. And, the biggest earners in the country it's been through real estate. So if you treat it like a business, and you do your homework and you do your research, it's an excellent source of income, and a great retirement plan as well.
Yeah, I always share with my coaching clients, there's 3 things that are always consistent: is liquor stores, the funeral business, and real estate. Yep. And, sometimes it's a longer play game. And sometimes, it's a short-term gain where you do have a short-term rental in a great area that's cash flowing very well. And again, I think it comes down to just making the right choice and aligning yourself with the right team, which includes your real estate agent, property manager, potentially a crew that can do your remodels and repairs.
Right.
So, Bobbie, any last thoughts you would like to share with somebody? Maybe somebody's listening to this today, and they're maybe motivated now to explore this further and maybe consider the opportunity of investing in real estate.
Well, I mean, the numbers don't lie. When you've got when you've made a good choice on a property. Just for example, we'll talk about my property. Now, in a suburban area, you're going to have a lower price than if you were going to buy, say, a beach house, but it's all relative. You're going to pay more, but you're also going to have more for rent, right? So it still works out about the same. So you can buy cheaper in a suburban area, but your rent's not, your daily fee is not as much. But so for my house in particular, the most I could rent that house would be $1,700 to $1,800 a month. That would be the highest I could get. That's what the neighborhood is showing. With short-term rental, because when you're looking at a per day stay, prices are just higher, for convenience. And so, what this particular unit is averaging is about $3,100 per month. And so the after expenses net, it pushes right at $2,000 in cash flow per month. So that's pretty good compared to if it were long-term, it would be about a net of $700.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Right. So if you consider having more than one, that can easily add up to what a lot of people earn per year. And so imagine that going forward, say during retirement, say 20 years from now, as prices increase, because in real estate just naturally appreciates, to having just this passive income during retirement. It's just a really good plan.
Yeah, in the greater Houston, Texas area, it's been pretty crazy the last couple of years, like 16%, 14% the year before that, I believe.
Yeah.
But on average, 3% a year. So not only are you bringing in income through the short-term rental at a higher rate, that property is also appreciating. And so they're paying down the note a lot quicker, and you're also appreciating as well.
Right.
So
that's right. And so as your cash flow grows, ideally you're buying your next one, and so you just keep going. And, I don't currently have a property manager. I'm able to manage mine myself. However, I know as I get more and more, I will eventually have to go to that. But one of the nice things with short-term rental, for example, is you've got, everything's provided in the house. So there is an additional expense to short-term rental. You do have to have a furnished place. However, again, the income absolutely supports it. The other thing is with long-term, you have to get more of a deal on the property for the long-term rental to make as much sense as short-term. You don't necessarily have to get a deal for short-term to work with the numbers, because again, the income's just so much higher. And so when a market is as strong as it is right now, where you're in a seller's market, properties will tend to be more geared towards short-term rental than long-term. And then later, when if things relax, rent goes up, then you can always revert back.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about it is you have some options there.
You always have, right.
You're not locked in. Well, Bobbie, I think I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I do get lots of questions around this, and I think it's great to have somebody that's actually doing this and at a very high level and helping others make decisions about making investments. If somebody had more questions about this and, thinking about short-term, maybe long-term, where that should be located, or maybe they're just thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate in the Kingwood, Humboldt, Atascocita, Greater Houston area, how can they connect with you?
Well, they can certainly call or text me on my phone number at 713-418-0641, or shoot me an email at bcallahan@kw.com.
Awesome. Well, Bobbie, thank you again. And this is great information. I know somebody it's going to help today. Maybe they've been sitting on the fence and they heard this today and they're like, I can do it too. If Bobbie can do it, if I can do it, there's millions of others that have done it before us. You can do it too. So thank you, Bobbie, again for bringing this information.
You're welcome. One thing I would also mention that many people don't know, if they're going to be doing this in an area where that is not this area that I don't specialize in, one thing we have at our office is a really big network all over the world. And we are able to see other realtors that provide service like we do, and we can connect them to other realtors that are like us. So that could be something that could be helpful instead of them just trying to figure out who to talk to.
Yeah, that's great. And Bobbie's got a huge national network, actually a worldwide network, that she can help connect you with the right person. And again, I think it really comes down to doing business with the right people. And I think that's, if you're listening to this in the audience and you're thinking about making this decision, that's exactly what you want. You want the expert that's helping you in making, these decisions, which are really important to you and probably your family as well. So thank you again, Bobbie. And until next time, onward and upward.
Thank you for listening to the Survive, Scale, Soar podcast. If you heard something that made a difference in your life today, share it with someone that might benefit and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Learn more about the host of this podcast and coaching services offered by Red Hawk Coaching by visiting www.redhawkcoaching.com.